So now let's roll into our afternoon speakers. Our first speaker is going to be Dr. John E. Kelly III. And Dr. Kelly is a Senior Vice President of Cognitive Solutions and Research at IBM. Today, Dr. Kelly is speaking on behalf of his company and the Department of Veterans Affairs, who joined forces on a collaboration. Our second speaker, Dr. Alex Hoos, the Senior Vice President, TA Head for Oncology Research and Development and Head of Immuno-Oncology at GlaxoSmithKline. Today, Dr. Hoos serves as the speaker for the new partnership between the Department of Energy, the National Cancer Institute, and GSK. Our third speaker will be Dr. Sangeeta Bhatia, a Howard Hughes Medical Institute investigator and director of the Marble Center for Cancer Nanomedicine at MIT. And today, Dr. Bhatia will help us understand what the future of cancer looks like. So please welcome first, Dr. John E. Kelly III.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Vice President Biden and all of the distinguished guests for pulling together such a wonderful day. It is for sure an inspiring day, if not a monumental day, and I sincerely hope that it's also a historic inflection point. I am thrilled to be here to represent the hundreds of thousands of IBMers that are committed to this cause. Now, some of you may not realize that IBM has a long history of partnership in America with our government around our grandest challenges. Going as far back as the 1930s, IBM worked in close partnership with the government to form the Social Security system. In the 60s, IBM worked closely with NASA to put a man on the moon. It was our computers in the control centers and our computers on the rockets that got the men safely to the moon and back. And lately, our technology serves as the backbone for our defense systems, our financial systems, and even our education systems. But now it's time with our advanced technology to take on the big one, cancer. We now have computers, as you heard from Vice President Biden, that are capable of doing 1 million calculations 1 billion times per second. We simply have to use these important tools to address the massive amounts of data that are being generated in and around healthcare, and particularly around cancer. In fact, medical data is increasing at an unprecedented rate. It's doubling every 2 years. Doubling every 2 years. Now think about what that means if we want to meet Vice President Biden's goal of moving in 10 years of knowledge into 5 years, when the data is doubling every 2 years. It's overwhelming. It's too much information, too much data. It's siloed. It doesn't interoperate, as you heard this morning. And it's in so many different types, from electronic medical records to doctor's notes to wearable devices to genomic data to medical images. We see this phenomenon across all industries. Now, a decade ago in IBM research, we realized that we had to reinvent computing to take on this challenge. Existing approaches simply could not deal with so much unstructured data, including doctor's notes. So we invented a new artificial intelligence computer system, a cognitive computing system, which we believe is the next era of computing. It ingests large disparate amounts of information. It uses machine learning to learn in a way not unlike humans. And it responds with purpose and intent. Basically, what search is to information retrieval, cognitive computing and artificial intelligence is to decision making, which is really the backbone of healthcare. The world's first truly cognitive computer was IBM Watson. And of course, you may remember its first debut on the Jeopardy game show in the United States just 5 years ago. Well, Watson has been in medical school And Watson has been studying at some of the greatest cancer institutions in the United States, such as Memorial Sloan Kettering and MD Anderson. Over the past 5 years, Watson has partnered with the top oncologists in our country. It has ingested the world's knowledge in cancer and is now developing an understanding of treatments. It's time to deploy this system. We've been working, in addition, with prototyping in 20 of the leading cancer institutions in the United States. And most importantly, we have been training Watson to deal with the motherlode of data, human genomic data. Watson can now surface insights from the specific mutations derived from cancer patients. Now, let me be clear. Watson does not displace the doctor. Watson does not make the diagnosis. It's an aid. It works side by side with the oncologist to take into account all of the factors in determining the proper treatment and protocol to be used. So today, we are proud to announce that we are making this Watson technology available to some of the most deserving people in our country, American heroes that are served by the Veterans Health Administration and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Why is this important? Well, despite the great advances in the human genome understanding, our ability to map the human genome for basically $1,000, the hundreds of gigabytes of data that are generated from the human genome are simply not understandable by humans on their own on the time scale with the urgency to make an individual decision on an individual patient. Today, cancer boards will spend days and often weeks analyzing a single patient's data to determine the proper protocol and treatment. This simply does not scale. We need cognitive systems to democratize the information and to distribute and scale the decision-making. We can finally do this with technologies such as Watson. Now, why the VA? The VA serves one of the largest groups of cancer patients in the world, estimated 3.5% of all US cases. And sadly, our vets have rising cancer rates and rising mortality. Today, we are thrilled to announce a public-private partnership with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs aimed at scaling personalized precision medicine. Working with Undersecretary David Shulkin and his team, our goal is to reach 10,000 vets with cancer over the next 2 years and have Watson work side by side with those cancer boards and those physicians to scale the knowledge of the world's very best. We estimate that over the next 2 years, we will be able to do 30 times as many cancer patients as would have been done without the scale of Watson. This is a huge leap forward, not only in the number of veterans that will be treated, but the speed and the precision at which the diagnosis will be made and the treatment will be given. Now, what also excites me, again, bridging off the Vice President's comments, is that this data will not only be ingested and understood and shared with the next patients beyond the 10,000, but the results of it will be broadly available for researchers around the country, beyond the VA, to other patients and other researchers and all of society. I think that this is exactly the kind of step forward that's required to accelerate our understanding of the next decade into the next 5 years. The National Cancer Moonshot is an initiative all about using technology to gain scale and time against this awful problem. We value this public-private partnership with the VA, and I will tell you that we would not have this partnership on this scale sitting here today if it was not for this Moonshot initiative. Once again, I want to thank Dr. Shulkin and the VA for engaging with IBM. I want to thank Vice President Biden for taking the leadership, and I assure you that the IBM Corporation will bring the best technology and people to bear on this problem in a public-private partnership. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Vice President Biden and the entire Moonshot team for the opportunity to come here today and contribute to something that can spark unique types of collaboration and help us to tackle the cancer problem. Now, throughout human history, and the history of science in particular, whenever bright minds with diverse backgrounds come together, they produce new ideas and they produce innovation that can enable us to solve some of the complex problems of our time. An example that probably resonates with all of you is the convergence of computer science with cell phone science, which helped us to actually create what everybody is using in your pocket today, PDAs or handheld devices that integrate two technologies. Quite simple in concept, very impactful in reality. Now, it is for those reasons that unique collaborations across the boundaries of different disciplines need to be used to help us solve the cancer problem. Cancer is undoubtedly one of the most complex disease challenges of mankind, and it is that mostly because of its monumental complexity. As we heard Vice President Biden say earlier, basically every cancer is a unique disease. There are more than 200 types of cancer characterized, but you can take this one step further and say every patient has a unique disease that needs a unique treatment. And in cancer drug development, we have thus far not been able to make unique personalized treatments for patients for every patient. We usually look at common features and use those common features to make drugs that multiple patients can use. But they are not as effective as we would have liked to be thus far. Now, with the recent advent of cancer immunotherapy, we have actually made some inroads on cancer, mostly because the immune system is able to adapt and can deal with some of the complexities of the disease. However, the immune system itself is highly complex, and our ability to understand immune state of patients and using the right immunotherapies or the right drugs for the right patient has not been solved yet. So it introduces new complexities. So in order for us to make the progress that we're now portraying to make and accelerate the pace by basically 100%, we need to be able to integrate different data points and process vast amounts of scientific data in a shorter period of time. So the Cancer Moonshot Initiative is now enabling us to bring disparate technologies and scientific disciplines together and actually do exactly that. So I'm very pleased to introduce now a private-public partnership between the Department of Energy, the National Cancer Institute, and GlaxoSmithKline. This initiative has been termed ATOM, or Acceleration of Therapeutics for Opportunities in Medicine. What it actually entails is the convergence of supercomputer computing capabilities from the Department of Energy, domain expertise in oncology and cancer biology from the National Cancer Institute, and drug development expertise and compound libraries and other tools from GlaxoSmithKline. So together, we're hoping that these three components will actually enable us to make a contribution to the pace or acceleration of the pace for the Cancer Moonshot. Now, the mission of ATOM is to advance and accelerate new development of cancer treatments. We're expecting that with the supercomputing power that the Department of Energy will provide, we will have the capabilities to process vast amounts of data in a variety of different areas, from cancer biology and biological models preclinically, to real-world patient biomarker and clinical trial information or clinical databases, and actually the large billions of compounds, large databases and compound libraries that the pharmaceutical industry is using to make new drugs. Bringing these together in a simulating fashion might enable us to accelerate pace of drug development. Now, this is a lofty goal. How do we measure success for such an initiative? ATOM aims to measure its success through the transformation of the trajectory of the cancer R&D process. Now, as you know, drug development uses milestones and measurable parameters to determine success. And we will use those to actually determine if the ATOM program is accelerating at pace. Now, beyond that, we also expect that we will change the treatment landscape for patients by making more drugs available faster and actually tailor them more effectively to the use in the right patient. There are three things we would like to accomplish. The first one is to create a modern discovery platform that enables to bring together the computing capabilities with the biological science. Second, we're expecting that technology and computing infrastructure that still needs to be created can be tailored towards precision medicine and towards immuno-oncology, using the immune system to treat the disease. And finally, as a third component, we expect to have a new model that will enable further collaboration beyond this one, which we view as a pilot, to bring together public-private partnerships that can help tackle the cancer problem and potentially others to follow. Now, having said that, based on the culture of pre-competitive information sharing, we believe we can accomplish this. So it is important that we step a bit beyond what is conventionally done and actually enable data to be shared beyond standard boundaries. Now, the three parties that will come together will bring unique capabilities to the Department of Energy, the National Cancer Institute, and GSK, and we look very much forward to get this process started with today's announcement and actually make progress very fast. I thank you.
I took the stool back. Thank you, Vice President Biden, Dr. Biden, and your incredible team for including me on the program today. It's an honor and a privilege to be part of this conversation. I'm a cancer researcher at MIT. As someone who's trained as both an engineer and a physician, I'm here to give you a glimpse of how the convergence of engineering and cancer research could transform the current landscape of cancer. I'm here to help you stretch your imagination about what might be possible with new technologies that are emerging on the horizon. You heard earlier about the power of cognitive computing and the potential to navigate and individualize treatment options for patients. These are exciting possibilities and inspiring technologies. But as an engineer, what really inspires me about today's computational power is the unsung hero that's under the hood, the microprocessor, the brain of the computer, which is built out of transistors. Where there used to be one transistor, we can now fit 1 billion. That incredible miniaturization was made possible by 50 years of teams of scientists and engineers working together to make computers smaller, and then faster, and then ultimately portable. And that portability transformed all of our lives through things like smartphones and Fitbits and GPS tracking devices. As a physician, what's inspiring to me is the possibility of repurposing these very miniaturization tools to deploy them on cancer to save lives. Now, you might think that the obvious place to start would be cancer treatment. And there are exciting possibilities there for sure. But what I want to tell you about is how miniaturization can transform cancer care through early cancer detection. You may have heard that worldwide, over 2/3 of cancer deaths are fully preventable today using methods we already know about. Those include vaccination, timely screening, and smoking cessation. But you may be surprised to learn that even the best tools and technologies that we have available today cannot detect some tumors until 8 to 10 years after they've started growing, when they are more than 50 million cancer cells strong. What if miniaturization could help us detect some of the most deadly cancers sooner, when they were just getting started, when they could be removed? What if you could make a detector so small that it could travel inside your body, find the tumor all by itself, and send a signal to the outside world? Nanotechnology allows us to do that. It allows us to shrink the parts that make up the detector from the width of a human hair, which is 100 microns, to 1,000 times smaller. And at that length scale, what we call the nanoscale, materials change their properties. They change their color, but importantly, they change how they travel in your body. Building on that finding, we recently developed a detector in my lab that is so small that it can circulate in the body looking for cancer. We designed it to listen for tumor invasion by making it sensitive to chemicals called enzymes that tumors need to spread. Our detector gets activated by these enzymes, each one doing 1,000 chemical reactions in an hour, which makes the technology ultra-sensitive. When the detector is activated, it throws off a shower of even tinier fragments, each smaller than 5 nanometers. And these can be filtered out of the blood by the kidney and put into the urine. So we end up with something we can detect outside of the body in the urine, telling us that cancer is there instead of waiting for it to grow big enough to detect it by imaging. These tiny fragments are completely synthetic. We designed them as engineers, and so it's possible to design them so that we can use something very inexpensive and portable to track them, something like paper, like a pregnancy test. In science, every discovery and every step forward stands on the work that's happened in so many other fields. And we were able to design these sensors, this new technology, because of all of the progress that's been made in miniaturization, in nanotechnology, and in studying the genome and the proteome of cancer, helping us find cancer's unique signatures. All of that helps us understand what enzymes we should be sensing to make the technology accurate. We have promising results in the lab, still in mice, where the sensors are working better than existing methods for lung, ovarian, and colon cancer. So I'd like to leave you with a dream about my technology. I can't say it's a promise, but it's a dream, and I think we all need dreams to keep us pushing forward, even, and maybe especially, cancer researchers. I dream that one day, instead of going into an expensive cancer screening facility, you could get a shot, wait an hour, and do a urine test on a paper strip. I imagine that this could happen even without the need for steady electricity or a physician on site, that you could take an image of this paper test with a smartphone and send it off to a remote provider. I hope that this would improve access to cancer screening, that it would lead to earlier detection than 10 years after a tumor had started growing for patients all around the world in all walks of life, and that ultimately we could save even more lives through early detection than we can today. That's my dream, that's my moonshot, and today I urge you all to dream along with me. Thank you.
Breakout rooms. The afternoon working sessions begin at 2